Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to week 2 of RITSEC. Give it up, clap it up, come on. All right, thank you guys for coming out to week 2. And I'm gonna hand it over to Kenny for some announcements, and then we'll hear from Tenchi about Intro to Windows.
Hey guys. Welcome to week 2. You guys have finished your 3rd week of school. Congratulations. I know school's hard. Announcements. There are none. Join the Discord. I really would hope you guys are in that, but if you're not, I'll give you some time to scan the QR code. Are we good? We're good. Please sign in. You guys know the drill, all right? Oh yeah. Check the calendar. Oh, do they not generate it? Yeah, okay. Give it a second. Give it a second, yeah. No, Max is trying his best. Okay, we're good. Now you can sign in, so please go sign in. Do you have the QR code for the Discord too? Yeah, you don't? Okay, I can go back. Yeah. What? Anthony's getting real buff over here. Oh, yeah. It'll be over. We good? If not, you can just go to the website and the link to join. Yeah. Sign in. You guys got it. Check the calendar. You guys got it. RTSEC mailing list. Sign up. Hope you guys are all on that by now. Mentorship groups. Let's go.
I don't know if anyone saw the rainbow sheet when I was putting it together, but I just sort through 99 applicants this year, which I think is like probably the largest ever. So I did my best to try to put everyone first, second, third choices, and then a couple people I put them into different groups, even if it wasn't their top 3. If you didn't actually get accepted into the program this time, it's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of I had 99 people I had to try to sort through. So as the year moves on, some people might drop out of the program, and then I have like a wait list ready of people who I can accept at that point. So if you did get accepted, you should have gotten a ping last night. Check your Discord just in case. And bingo, bango, bongo.
Mentorship makes me happy. So happy. Meet the sponsors. Clap it up. Let's go. Anthony, let's go. Keep it going. Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it gets better. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Follow our social media. It's great. We good? We're good. Hey, Jason. Okay. Today we'll have Intro to Windows with Mr. Tenchi Mata. I love you, Tenchi.
I love you, Kenny. All right. Hello. My name is Tenchi. As many of you know already, I love Windows. Actually, get to my introduction slide. Disclaimer, this presentation is just my opinions. I don't represent the company that I work for right here, right now. So anything I say or do is not a reflection of the company, and this is just me speaking. Okay. So who am I? My name is Tenchi. I'm originally from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a CSEC major, of course. I minor in math. The Teen Contagion co-captain, along with Chandy. We're having a CTF this weekend, so if you're part of that, I'll be seeing you upstairs in about 4 to 5 hours. I'm also a weeb, as you can see. I love VTubers, yes. And I like Windows, and that's why I'm doing this presentation. Also, I work at SRA as a TA consultant, fancy word for pen testing. All right, and without further ado, let's kind of talk about the goals that we're going to be covering for this presentation. So a basic understanding of the Windows OS file system and processes / services, being comfortable with command command prompt and PowerShell. You're going to get a little bit of scripting knowledge, kind of using PowerShell, CMDlets, and also batch scripting as well with the command prompt. And being able to maneuver the Windows GUI interface. And, okay, that's not me. And being able to maneuver through the Windows GUI and, yeah, basic overview of Active Directory as well. Okay, what is Windows? It is the best operating system of all time. The GOAT of operating systems, okay? No. Okay, who loves Windows? Woo! Yes, clap it up. Yeah, we love Windows. Yeah, we love backwards compatibility with like old Apple systems, the Apple II. Woo! Absolutely no bugs. No blue. What is the blue screen? What is the blue screen? Most secure operating system, even better than Linux. Thoughts? Comprehensive documentation. Every single function in the kernel is documented. And open source. Open source. Okay, that's, you got like half truths and half lies right there. Okay, in all seriousness, what is Windows? So Windows is, it's the operating system of Microsoft. Started with the DOS operating system back in the 80s and 90s. NT came out in like 1996 with Windows NT operating system. And from there, they switched to a thing known as the Windows NT kernel. And that's what's kind of the underlying kernel with all operating systems since Windows NT came out. And so we're currently in Windows NT version 10. Even Windows 11 is actually Windows NT 10. Don't ask me why. That's just how it goes. Okay? And Windows has a couple of different flavors, as many of you guys know. There's Windows Home, Education, Pro. They just have very minor feature differences that aren't too important to talk about because, well, it's just very small. And then you have Windows Server, which is going to be running your kind of enterprise applications, and Windows Server is going to be the basis for your Active Directory stuff. Our most popular OS has like 70% of the market share, and then for this presentation specifically, we're going to focus on Windows 10. Windows 10. All right, first up, we're going to talk about the Windows file system, okay? So, if you guys don't know, Windows uses a file system called NTFS. That's going to be the new technology file system, okay? And it starts with the C location because, does anybody know why? First, I want to ask. I want to get some audience participation. Yes? Yes, tape drives, but also floppy disks, okay? So A was reserved for floppy disk, and B was also reserved for floppy disks. But C was for this, CD drives, and that's where kind of the modern computing came. And with Windows NTFS, they start with their main file system location with the C notation. Important locations for the Windows operating system is going to include /users. So C/users is going to contain all your users, including administrator, guest users, and some built-in users that we're going to talk about, but actually don't have folders. Windows is going to be a folder on the main part of C. That's going to contain your operating system binaries and DLLs. System32 is going to be your 64-bit location for all the operating system stuff. That is because Windows allows backwards compatibility. So not only can it execute 64-bit binaries, but it can also execute 32-bit and it's 16-bit in rare occasions. And so this is where syswow64 comes into play, where that's going to store all the 32-bit binaries in that folder. So like you have a version for, let's say calc.exe, right? You have calc.exe 64-bit version, but you also have a 32-bit version in syswow64. Program files and program files x86, it's the kind of same idea. You have your 32-bit applications and your 64-bit applications stored there, and then program data, which is going to include miscellaneous data used by programs. And also, file extensions are going to be important for the NTFS file system. So right here, got a quick meme with Kanye. We love Kanye. So having multiple extensions, it still works, but Windows might not recognize it. So extensions are very, very important. All right, now we're going to kind of get down to the nitty and gritty permissioning of NTFS files. So opposed to a traditional file system like FAT32 or ext4, NTFS has access control lists. So that's going to be a list of permissions, and here's some of the basic permissions that it has. So it's got read permission, write permission, just like Linux, but also has a specific list folder and contents and read and execute. So kind of that read and execute combined. It also has modify and full control. Right? So this is what you call, maybe you guys learned in CSEC 140, but this is going to be your discretionary access control lists. Okay? So Windows, it allows you more of fine-grained control over each individual file or each individual object. And there's also this thing, there's a ACE access control entities, which are even more fine-grained permissions that we'll be going over probably in the next few weeks for objects within the NTFS file system. And then they also contain SID, which is an identifier for each object as well. So as you can see, Windows is very object-oriented. You know, you're going to have these definitions for each thing in Windows, and it's going to have an identifier for each one of them. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about the registry. So the registry, as many of you probably heard, you know, maybe in Minecraft tutorials, you get like, oh yeah, you know, get execute regedit. So it's a system database that stores application and system configuration data with components. It's kind of just a complicated word for it. It's just a database where it has specific configurations for applications. It stores users. It also stores system and user level information. So there are 5 key objects within the registry, and those are called hives. These are hives. So they all start with this H key prefix. So first up, we have H key local machine, abbreviated as HKLM. It's going to contain Windows-related settings default to the local computer. Okay, that's going to be you know, your local users versus, you know, domain users, and we're going to talk about that later on. Next up, we have the Hive current configuration. So that's going to contain your hardware profile information. So say if you had a device saved onto the, so you say you have like a gaming mouse, right? All those configurations that need to be stored in the registry are going to be contained in that Hive. HKey classes root data related to installed applications. So in here, you're going to see some like, there's a new extension that's going with the application. That information is going to be stored in there. So like if you installed Photoshop, that extension is going to be included within HKCR, and the system will access that data so it can recognize the application file. Next up, we have HKey current user, HKCU. So that's going to be your current user settings and configurations. Next up, we have for users, holds group policy data. Okay, and that's going to be more of an Active Directory thing, which we'll get later on. And these are going to contain values, and they're going to be key value pairs with data in each value, and these can be of different types. They can be integers, and they can be strings. They can be arrays and binary data. And you'll see these, Windows has its own types as well. I'm not going to get into too much specifics of it, but so you got a registry string as a type. And you also have a registry dword. Dword is 4 bytes. 4 bytes, I believe. 4 bytes of data. Okay, so this is kind of the breakdown with the registry. So, like I said before, you got the 5 main hives. And then you have your keys. All right, the keys are only the first few folders in the, I'm not sure how to call it, but it's like whatever's after the hive, those are considered the keys. But then you also have subkeys, which get interesting because they're like within those keys. And then you have the key value pairs, but they're not called keys. They're called values, and then you have data. So value data pair. Okay, this is the correct definition for registries. Reg keys. Yeah, it's whack. Okay. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about processes. So a process is a program that is running following the format of a exe, some part of the operating system, while others are started manually by users. And you can view them by using either Task Manager or Task List within command prompt, or PowerShell using get process. And so, yeah, I'll get to that later. Okay, now we're going to kind of go into services. So processes that are running in the background, they're very similar to Linux daemons. These are going to be controlled by the Service Control Manager. That's going to be a Microsoft management console. It's a Microsoft Snap-in. Now, these can be run as system, network service, and local service. Now, these are some local accounts that can be used, that not be used, but they're on the local machine. Can be even running when no one's logged on. So it can be, it's just running in the background, as I previously stated. Automatically, manually triggered by some event, which you can supply within Service Control Manager or through the command line. So I have an example here. So the PowerShell way and also the command prompt way, because you have two ways to do, you have two shells in Windows. So PowerShell gets service attack name, and then you also have command prompt. You're using the SC binary, and you create your service, and then you have your path to your executable. And so this picture kind of sums up the operating system structure in a very nice way. Don't worry too much about this lower stuff, like this low-level stuff, but I like how it had the registry onto the side, and it had kind of the kernel and user, and it's like direct. It's not, the registry is not like directly related to the file system, but it's also using it in a way. So it's a good like visualization. Okay, next up, I should have this slide earlier, but what are users and groups? Users and groups are much different from Unix system. So they have permissions based on security identifiers, and it's a unique value used to identify a user, group, or session, but also can be used to identify objects. There are many different groups with varying permission levels. So you've got like local admin, remote desktop admins for remoting. But the highest level of permission for a user is administrator. Okay. But they also, Windows also has these built-in service accounts that I've talked about before. Okay, so first up we got local system, or also known as NTAuth or NTAuth system. This, if you can think about it as like kind of a root in a sense. It's a little different though, because Trusted Installer, which is another service account, has higher permissions than NTAuth system in certain cases. Also got local service. This is for running services as locally, and so that's going to have specific permissions set to each service. So if a service is running as local service, it'll have less permissions than a network service, because network service needs to have the capability of using internet. Like it needs a network connection. Okay, we're going to go over this user access control. So if you've ever seen the blue prompt where it's like, are you sure you want to run this as administrator? That's called user access control. So it's using this technology called user interface privilege isolation. So it's kind of isolating these lower integrity level processes, taking to higher integrity level processes. So it's like a small feature of sandboxing. introduced in Windows Vista, I believe. And essentially kind of isolates the process if another user were to execute trying to execute something as a higher permission. And so this is just kind of a prompt. UAC will sometimes even prompt you for the administrator level account, which prevents lower privileged users to access higher privileged resources. So you got protected from highest to lowest, protected, system, high, medium, low, and untrusted. Okay, so this is important to know in the coming weeks. I think this will become more clear in the Blue Windows presentation. Yeah. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about Windows MMCs and snap-ins. So MMC stands for Microsoft Management Console. And these are just GUI tools for configuring and setting things up on the Windows system. Control panel is a part of these MMCs and snap-ins. RIP control panel, you will be missed. It's getting removed in newer versions of Windows, but you can still access it, funny enough. So you guys might know that Windows has its like settings GUI, but it also has control panel. You can still use both, right? So a couple important snap-ins slash MMCs. So computer management. This is kind of going to list a lot, mostly everything within the operating system. So it's going to list out scheduled tasks, users, services. It's kind of a one-stop shop for almost everything. You can configure a lot of stuff there. But if you want to go to kind of the nitty-gritty and specifics, you can configure users through local user manager. So right there, you got local user manager.msc. You got also service manager. So that's the service control manager, SCM, right? That's going to pop that up. You also have task scheduler, but you also that's going to pop up scheduled tasks on the system. So that's very similar to cron jobs. Kind of think about it. You also have Windows Firewall Management with wf.msc. Right, so a lot of stuff you can configure with the GUI opposed to the command line. So you have that kind of, you can do it both ways. You can do it from the command line, and you can also do it from a GUI interface. Right, so that's kind of why Windows is very easy to use for first-time users opposed to Linux, because you're mostly interacting with settings on Linux through a command line. Opposed to a GUI. Okay, now we're going to get into command prompt. All right, so command prompt, as many of you know, it's the it's the default shell for Windows. It doesn't look too good. It's very old. Uses the DOS batch language. Can also be scripted. Very similar syntax to Bash scripting. So we have the basic commands with the Linux equivalents. So we got dir for ls, type for cat, find str for grep, cls for clear. I always forget that it's cls and not clear on command prompt. You also have some more commands that are not found in Linux. You have net. Net is very powerful. I do it. It allows you to see not only users, but also groups and share information. System info is going to bring up all the system information all at once. Netstat, that's good. That's exact. It works the exact same as the Linux command. NetSH is also powerful. It's also going to be using the Windows. It interacts with the Windows firewall and among other things. And if you want to display help for most commands, it's going to be done with a /? and not TAC-H. And ss64.com is a great resource for both PowerShell and CMD. Now I want you to forget everything I just said and use PowerShell. So all these CMD commands, not only can you use them in PowerShell, but you can also use just the Linux version of the commands. So you can use lscat, what are the other ones? Grep, mv, cp, clear. You You can use all of those in PowerShell. So it's basically Microsoft's answer to Bash. It's built on a .NET framework, heavily object-oriented, extremely verbose, but it's very powerful at the same time. You can execute everything that CMD can within PowerShell, except for I think very few things. Very few things you can only do on CMD. Because some of the basics, so it's built on this verb-noun syntax. So, for example, you have like add, get, create, remove, and then you have what you're doing. So, like create process or get process. Let's see, get user, add user, things like that. And then some of the help commands, right? You got get command, which allows you to find the command name based on the modules. So you can import a variety of different modules within PowerShell. So you can import like a PowerShell. You can import Active Directory modules. So once your computer gets connected to Active Directory, once your computer gets connected to Active Directory, you can use Active Directory commands. So like get AD domain, right? You can't usually execute that within a non-domain connected computer. So you also have get help. So that's going to allow you to see more information on the commands. So you do get help, and you also supply the command that you want to use. So get module will list out all the modules that you have currently imported within your PowerShell. And then you can also do invoke what if, very similar to get help. I think it does it does a different thing. I don't remember though. But yeah, PowerShell is very powerful. Use it over CMD because if you forget a Windows command, you can just use the Linux command instead. Unless you need to, of course, write a script in Bash. But you can also write in PowerShell. All right. Couple of shortcuts for Windows. So you got Windows L. This is very helpful so you don't get donutted. Windows L, don't forget that. It's going to lock your screen. You got Windows R. That's going to bring up the run prompt. So for that, you can execute like regedit or any of the MMC/snap-ins that I've discussed previously. Windows I, quick way to open the Windows settings. Very quick and easy. It's very helpful when you're just trying to set up things very fast. Windows X, that's going to open the quick link menu. So the quick link menu is when you click the Windows button on the bottom left, that's going to pop up like a menu of all like some snap-ins, some shells, and you can like log off. So sometimes when you need to open a PowerShell, it's just a different way to open PowerShell sometimes, or any of the MMC/snap-ins. I also use Windows R when I'm trying to open up like regedit or any of the snap-ins, because I just remember the snap-ins. And yeah. So there's also Windows V, which I didn't know about. Learned it over the summer, actually. There's clipboard history that you can keep track of. So if you're in a VM, it's very helpful, right?
You have to turn it on.
Oh, yeah, you do have to turn it on, yes. It is disabled by default. So it's extremely helpful when you're inside a VM and you forget what you just copy and pasted before, and you can just quickly grab it on the go. Control-Shift-Escape is going to open Task Manager. Task Manager is incredibly powerful. If I remember correctly, this is like a kernel pause when you do this. So when you open Task Manager, kernel will pause and open up Task Manager for you, if I'm not mistaken. Watch Dave's Garage's video on Task Manager, because he's the one that built it. Very good video if you're interested in more of the history of Task Manager and how it was built. Control-Shift-Click on a taskbar button will open an app as an administrator. So say, for example, you have PowerShell on your taskbar, right? That's going to be all the little icons on the bottom. or wherever you set your taskbar, because you can set it on left, right, top. But you can quickly open a PowerShell window using Administrator, and that's going to be extremely helpful in blue team competitions. Windows R, and then enter Control. That's the fastest way to open Control Panel that I know of. I couldn't find a shortcut on opening Control Panel. Just to be clear, settings and Control Panel are different. Settings and Control Panel are different. Okay, now we're going to get into Active Directory. So what is Active Directory? Also known as Active Directory Domain Services, is a technology developed by Microsoft. It's used to manage enterprise networks and kind of have the IAM aspect. So it's going to be identity access management, right? So you're going to also provide a single sign-on and ease of access to users to access applications and request elevated access to a set of applications. So it's kind of built on the structure called a forest. So the forest is the overarching structure where it has multiple domains. And then from there, you have each domain will have its own users, groups, and organizational units. This will be discussed throughout the weeks, especially in blue windows. It's a tree-like structure. It stores information about the domain and computers, users, printers, and devices. Allows you to verify users and define their access rights. So it's very configurable. You can do like very fine-grained configurations for users. And yeah, it has a high degree of configuration, but it also requires a high degree of knowledge of Active Directory because there's a lot of things in Active Directory. It's like, oh, you can do this setting that you might have not known of previously. But recently, Microsoft is pushing companies to host AD in the cloud. So if you heard Active Directory Azure, AD Azure, it's Microsoft's cloud platform, and there's a big shift in the industry or within companies to switch to cloud AD instead of on-prem AD. All right, so that's going to conclude my presentation. Here's some resources. So there's MSDN. So MSDN is the Microsoft's official documentation. And includes a lot about the Windows internals, but also PowerShell command prompt, Active Directory, and yeah, a lot of great stuff. Even if you want to program stuff and see using Windows API, MSDN is where you find most of the stuff. SS64, as I noted in the command prompt and PowerShell slide. Very helpful because it actually just shows you all the commands that you're able to execute from each module. So yeah, I've had more success with that than MSDN. Then we got some registries, more MSDN links. Also, highly recommend if you want to learn more about Active Directory, check out the Try Hack Me Active Directory room. This one's free. It's very good. All right, any questions? Okay. Nope. There's no questions on stream. All right. Thank you so much.